On May 8, 2015, a San Jose couple became victims under very strange circumstances in Northern California. Just a year before this mysterious invasion, the couple had fulfilled their lifelong goal of installing security cameras, acting on advice from local police. Although they arrived at the house without a fear or reason to panic, the family quickly settled into the local suburb with their babysitter, Rosie, finally finding peace while they looked to secure their home. Things seemed to be going well for them, but when night came, the situation took a darker turn as two intruders emerged, acting in incredibly strange ways. According to the camera footage, it wasn't uncommon to see the men engage in calculated rituals and erratic behaviors, almost as if they were falling victim to violent episodes. Just a few minutes after their arrival in the yard, the men abruptly left the fence line, slipped through an unlocked sliding glass door, and began searching anywhere they could. They lingered in the kitchen, rifling through drawers in the dark, and even unplugged the phones in the house. By early evening, the men were standing in the kitchen, their focus shifting to the kitchen knives, a highly dangerous weapon choice. It was around this time that the men ran upstairs, hoping to permanently breach a locked door and travel to different rooms in the house. When they reached the end of the hall, they assured themselves they would get inside. Unfortunately for them, a locked door kept them from reaching the victims they longed for, and their behavior grew increasingly erratic and unpredictable. In the moments before the attempted breach, the babysitter mentioned that they had been acting violently over an unseen crying baby. They never stated specific intent, but this seemed to be one of the triggers for their paranoid behavior. A few seconds before a breakthrough, the men had an episode where they violently kicked the wooden door until a hole appeared, later pushing knives through the splintered frame. Thankfully, around that time, Rosie had already grabbed the child and barricaded them safely inside. On the morning of Sunday, June 18, 2017, a man named Jeff D. arrived home from late hours at work, only to find his property completely ransacked. Jeff had left his workplace at 3:45 a.m., hoping to just go to sleep. When he noticed his place was vandalized, he pulled out his phone, telling his audience to pay attention as he documented the scene. As soon as he records the damage, it becomes pretty clear that this is no ordinary burglary.
Okay, folks, I came home from work today. Today is the morning of the 18th of June, 2017. Someone broke in to the house and just started destroying things. Now, my television is still here. My PlayStation 4 is still here. They evidently slept on the couch, got the Kool-Aid out of the refrigerator. I'm not touching anything until the police get here. If I don't know if they're going to do any fingerprints or anything. They even just threw junk everywhere. That's what I'm trying to figure out. They just started throwing things and breaking them. It doesn't look like they were stealing a lot of things. Here's firewood that they used. We have stained glass windows that are before 1900 or 1898 supposedly is the date on these things, and they just broke those. I broke that one anyway, just for the fun of it. I mean, there are so many things here they could have stolen, and all they did was break.
Instead of taking any valuables, the thief had eaten Jeff's food from the fridge, turned the place upside down, and didn't even bother to clean up the evidence of his intrusion, leaving a glass of Kool-Aid and a slice of pizza right on the floor next to the couch. From shattered pieces of pottery to broken stained glass windows to a cast iron item, whoever broke into the house apparently just wanted to have some fun throwing things, destroying furniture, and generally making a mess. For the next few minutes, the recording continues in much the same way, with Jeff documenting the extensive damage caused to his property. But when he goes upstairs and steps into his bedroom, he finds something extremely chilling. There is somebody sleeping in the bed in the bedroom. I don't know who it is. footage shows a random person fast asleep on Jeff's bed. Shocked at the sight of the stranger, Jeff did the only reasonable thing to do at that moment. He locked himself in another room while he waited for the police.
Down your nose. Hands on top of your head. You got a light in here?
I got a lamp over here. If you're all right with it.
What's your deal?
No. What? I have no idea who this is.
40 foot this way, I'm 10-15. Stand up for me.
After finding the stranger in the victim's bed, the cops asked the intruder if he was under the influence of drugs. Even though he denies it, it's pretty clear that he had tried to open some of Jeff's prescription medication bottles. When asked what he was doing sleeping in another man's bed, he claims he doesn't know how he ended up there. One of the things that's most surprising about the footage is that, for a guy who just single-handedly destroyed an entire house, the intruder went down pretty easily, not even putting up a fight when the officer put the cuffs on. Even more disturbing is the fact that the man doesn't even seem to remember his own name, suggesting he was almost entirely under the influence of something during the break-in. Later in the investigation, the identity of the intruder was revealed as 39-year-old Stacy Foster, a Fraser's Bottom, West Virginia resident. He was subsequently charged with nighttime burglary and destruction of property following his actions at Jeff's house, and was placed in Western Regional Jail on a $50,000 bond. What the authorities ultimately decided to do with him after that, or exactly how he ended up vandalizing a random home and sleeping in a stranger's bed, was never publicly revealed. In November of 2009, a man named Joe Cummings lived in a small New York apartment. Out of nowhere, he began to notice food mysteriously disappearing from his fridge and pantry, food that he knew for a fact he wasn't eating. After this went on for a while, he finally confronted his girlfriend about it, but oddly, she completely denied eating any of his food. Not believing her, Joe decided to set up a camera overnight so that he could catch her in the act and confront her with the evidence. However, when Joe woke up the next morning and reviewed the footage, he would be met with something horrifying. In the video, an unknown woman, who is definitely not Joe's girlfriend, can be seen climbing down from what Joe claims is a storage area in his apartment. This space had no connection to any outside ventilation or external entry points. She then casually walks over to the fridge and pantry and begins eating different foods and drinking milk. Suddenly, Joe actually comes out of his bedroom, forcing the woman to quickly scramble and find a hiding spot. Once Joe goes back into his room, she emerges, gathers up some more food, and slowly retreats back into the dark storage area. When Joe reviewed the footage the next morning, he immediately called the police. When authorities arrived, they pulled the woman out of the storage area and arrested her. It remains unknown exactly how she managed to get inside the apartment in the first place. Because he lived on the top floor of his building, Joe believed she could have gotten in through a fire escape located on the ceiling. Police guessed that the woman had been secretly living in that storage space for a couple of weeks, possibly with plans to eventually rob Joe, but whether or not those were her actual motives was never fully confirmed. In another unsettling piece of footage, a young college-age girl comes home and lets herself into her house. But less than 5 seconds after she steps inside, 2 large men appear on the porch, and the one in front immediately reaches out and tries to open the door.
Jersey.
Some people think the men looked genuinely confused and may have just had the wrong house. However, the incredibly short window of time between the girl entering and the men stepping onto the porch would have definitely allowed them to see her walk inside. You'd think anyone who tries to open the door to a house must surely know they have the right place, or at the very least, know who lives there. It could also be argued that when the man turns to his friend behind him, he's noticing the security camera, pretending to think he has the right house by sticking around and knocking. Despite the obvious, terrified screams from the girl inside as she realizes the men are at her door, it seems they only decide to run off after the girl loudly screams, "We're calling the police." Unlike some clear-cut break-ins, there is no 100% proof of whether these guys had bad intentions or not, whether they were actively trying to grab the girl, or if they genuinely just had the wrong address, is still up for debate, as no further information on this video was ever released. In November 2021, a woman took to Twitter to report that a creepy-looking man had been standing entirely still outside her apartment almost every single night for an entire month. To back up her terrifying claims, she shared several videos captured by her Ring camera. The footage shows the man standing there in the dark for extended periods of time, facing her door in a deeply disturbing way. At certain points in the footage, he can be heard speaking, but what he is whispering is impossible to make out. The woman resorted to posting the videos on Twitter after her repeated complaints to the police apparently fell on deaf ears. It was a few days after her initial viral post that she posted a final update, stating that her friends and family had taken matters into their own hands and confronted the man, which seemingly finally got him to stop. Additionally, the massive attention from the viral post prompted her building security to do an additional routine patrol throughout the night. Her Twitter profile has since disappeared, so there don't appear to be any further updates on who this man was or what he wanted. On July 18, 2025, a 26-year-old man named Andre Series Jeldon allegedly attempted to kidnap a child right out of the Fair Oaks shopping center in Virginia. The chilling incident was captured in broad daylight on mall security cameras. The young girl had wandered slightly away from an indoor play area while her father was watching her. The moment he realized she was missing, He panicked and immediately called his wife, who was shopping at a nearby JCPenney store. According to reports, Jeldon had picked up the child and was casually carrying her through the mall, moving directly through public areas and upper-level walkways. People walking right past them did not react, simply because they assumed he was a normal father carrying his daughter. Fortunately, the girl's frantic mother arrived and managed to locate Jeldon on the second floor while he was still holding her child. She confronted him immediately. Jeldon handed the child back without any resistance, bizarrely claiming that he was just trying to help her find her parents. Thankfully, the girl was not physically harmed. Jeldon was arrested, charged with abduction of a minor and grand larceny, and was held without bond. Reports later noted a deeply troubling criminal history. In 2024, he had been charged with battery, malicious wounding, and property damage involving his own mother, father, and brother. Authorities further alleged that while he was out on bail for those exact charges, he had again targeted members of his family. A psychiatric evaluation was reportedly made part of the ongoing legal proceedings to figure out exactly what drove his actions. On March 25, 2017, disaster struck inside the Langham Place shopping center. Around 120 shoppers were traveling upward on escalator E18, a massive moving staircase that connected the mall's 4th floor directly to the 8th floor. Without any warning whatsoever, the escalator suddenly stopped moving upward and rapidly began rolling backward. People instantly lost their balance, falling violently into one another. A massive pileup formed at the bottom of the stairs, while helpless people farther up the escalator continued sliding downward right into the crush. By the time the machine was halted, a total of 18 passengers had been injured in the chaos, with 3 people requiring immediate admission to the hospital.